strategy to prioritize regions of the country that are being hit hard in this third wave. But Trudeau tells us he has no plans to.
They just compared the nursing home thing, the long-term care home thing, to a fire.
And it's up to them if they want altered.
Provinces come together and want to make that change. We'll, of course, be there to listen and facilitate that.
The Prime Minister also expressing his confidence in the AstraZeneca vaccine a day after Quebec reported the first death of someone who developed a very rare blood clot after receiving the shot. Trudeau says...
Yes, Chomo, we know we're there. You're there. We're not showing you, you dumbass. Fuck off. You fucking idiot.
The very, very rare, real risks of side effects from AstraZeneca.
To listen to the full interview, head to our website, Cormac Makes 20 Parliament Hill.
If you want to know why Chomo doesn't show up on the view counter don't work correctly anyway. Viewer counter. He's using admin privileges.
$80 off the #1 meal kit in Canada.
Yeah, keep it up, Chomo. He's trying to lock it up when my face lines up perfectly to be this sociopathic thing where he thinks I'm looking at him through the screen.
Easier and safer than ever before. Get $40 off your first 2 orders at Good Food. That's $80 savings. Go to makegoodfood.ca to redeem your offer with the
keep it up, Chomo. Keep it up. No, I'm confusing. You can't figure out which device to jam up or which app to go after, which port.
The price will rise 3 cents at midnight to 129.9.
So there's some type of important news coming in 5 minutes, supposedly.
What if I said fixed or variable? 3 years or 5, 10, 25%, or maybe no down payment at all? Self-employed, bad credit, lots of consumer debt.
Big shots, nigga, rep your block.
These nephews, I don't think you understand what we don't have to do. I don't have to tell you that I'm not heaven-scented, hell-bent on your destruction and a little bit of a malfunction and some misinformation.
Shaking up your kidney, cause you faking and dizzy. My niggas lippy and shifty, pissy, really icky, sicky. We don't give a wiggy, what really, really trying to kill the city like crack in the 80s. I'm ready to burn in 80s. My doctor's infected with rabies, not even my barber can fade me. You niggas is crazy. Fuck up, fight and learn what these talents do. You could be as cuckoo as you are, unbalanced too. Fixing the garden, I'm coming to batter you. Massacre splatter you, run you off of your avenue while I laugh at you. The money start dizzy, demented rushes. My figment of the repairs, igneous, run you up the district.
If you rep the team, I know you'll set me high. Big shots, nigga, rep your block. Be holding your tongue to play off where the soldiers is from. If you rep the team, I know you'll set me high. Big shots, nigga, rep your block. You ain't the man, yeah, best be holding your tongue to play off where the soldiers is from. Star City where we blast shots, then to the last block, get man mentality, cause all of us niggas ass rocks. Over the game, homies and feeling cash crops, money growing trees, just turning coke, leave the crack rock. Find a block, dedicated, keep it padlocked. Business of animals, watch your dog, jealous rats talk. We pack blocks and smoke weed, we here like Sasquatch. Fuck my niggas, dog, your son will dig you out of a sandbox. Better yet, I crash your plane, spit on the black box, because he's highly trained on cocaine, higher than that plug, be that hard. You with more clips is, for instance, the same equivalent as a bed nail in the insects, ridiculous. Most cats is sweet like licorice. I eat they food fast, smoke niggas similar to cigarettes. You dig me yet? Better catch get murder ass. I'm a murder fast, leave you colder than the incubator. You rep the team, I know you'll set me high. Big shots, nigga, rep your block.
They just told us there's gonna be some type of news update thing, big news at 3:15, and we'll be bringing it right to you as soon as we get it. So who knows what's gonna happen?
Big shots, nigga, rep your block. You ain't the man, yeah, best be holding your tongue to play off where the soldiers is from.
So in the previous video, if I say last/next in the order of the uploads list, the video I just did will come up next. You're watching reverse order if you watch that list, and that little link will slide by at the end of every video. I was talking about my grandfathers, the two of them. One served in Korea in the army, the other one came here right after World War II. And the next part of the story that I was going to get to, my grandfather that came from the Netherlands was the chairman of a committee that reviewed the, how do I phrase this? They did a report. They reviewed the report from the coroner's inquest into the Extendicare nursing home fire. So he's listed as the author. So I don't know precisely how. There's a committee of people contributed to this report, but he's listed as the author because he's the chairperson. It's an Ontario government publication. And I forgot what year it's from.
Keep you
You can find it on Google Books, but you cannot find a full copy anywhere. But I guarantee, as I've been saying for a year, these motherfuckers are going to look that up and find it. They're going to review everything. Everybody's going to review everything. They're going to say, what did the government know already? Hey, look at this publication. Just type that last name in there. That's the same last name as the WHO epidemiologist, head virologist, whatever the fuck she is, head epidemiologist, Maria Vandenkerkhoff. From the graveyard, from the churchyard, Kirk, Captain Kirk. But I'm Captain Trippz, and I'm here to kill you with my DNA strand and no need for oxygen.
Niggas rapping out of city, niggas homie, kicking trees, by the OGs, all we do is hold G's, please, you small time like the little leagues, pussy niggas bleed when they fuck with me, turn like a track star when they fuck with me, I ain't buckshot, but I buck shots, homie, I pat the hollows for the cops only, it's all real in the hood, they call me abs and still.
That refers to in the early 90s, there was a so-called controversy about whether the cops should be issued hollow points, and if they should anybody else be allowed to have them? Sounds like he's saying, because we only shoot at cops. Where the soldiers is from. Where's my... so I don't have the red and black on me. Independent soldiers. Not listening.
Not my after still, I make you feel still if you're after real. Cook
not
like
the politician.
Chef perfection. See my throat flow stack up erection. Not attention, me getting love proposed. Attention, ladies spark the drill. Double crack.
Now we're getting set for a news conference from Queens Park. It's an update from the Ford government on their plan for paid sick days. The Labor Minister, Mr. Finance, will be there.
The Labor Minister and the Minister of Finance. That's good.
Big shots, nigga, wreck your block. Holding your tongue to play off where the soldiers is from.
So the Labor Minister is like the livestock manager, and the Finance Minister is, the guy that goes and applies for the loan. You apply for the loan.
Big shots, nigga, wreck your block. You ain't the man, can't be holding your tongue to play off where the soldiers is from.
Fuck.
Gunshot liquor,
50 drum beating like sofa. I'm Trinidad when my boy smoke a coca. Your homie got hit, he was riding like a chauffeur. Planet of the Apes, I was blood clot coca. Coke pop come with a strap, swing off the shoulder. In the coffin, shutting the lid, giving you closure. You ever get close, something coming out the holster. People ride the train, they're gonna see you on a poster. We poster, but you never talk on what we approach. Get the blind, go online, and now you're doing the most. Don't kill him in my yard, nigga, like I could host. Didn't notice they pull guns when you thought you could roast. Just a dose. Know you love niggas, need some milligrams. Sitting with a milli, he be posting it on Instagram. Them dust has love me selling quarters out the kilogram. Chrome polish so good, swear I used to Brillo pack, baby. Fried chicken, oxtail gravy. Shaking up the crown like an earthquake in Haiti. Stop trying to rap, like how you niggas don't see me. You got it. Metro still trying to play me. They said I wasn't sick, but I'm sick though. I give you gangsta rap, our calypso. We never stop eating like it's a pit bull. And young boy can't stop squeezing, they got it. With the hammers, shorty in the kitchen, chicken like Louisiana. Killer like Diana. I go to sleep with a rifle in my pajamas. I was childish, but my Gambino no Atlanta. Gunshot for your head top. For the ground, nigga, off you, G. Man, them niggas that we beefing is so lame. I run with them clips, my gun black, and I spit like old bays. Four white boys who let it sing like Coldplay. I sat back and got a flashback on my old ways. Like blocker. 30 shots up in the fucking chopper. He got shot, but shot back and couldn't see the doctor. Nigga bled out, cause nigga, I was fed up. Remembering the day my brother got it, couldn't get up. So I went and got a Mac 11, send me just a weather. And 2 bad light-skinned bitches for the sweater. My city getting crazy, and nigga, mom's losing their babies. I know the pain to have to carry my nigga. To a place to bury my nigga. But since then, you gotta go ahead to bury the trigger.
Details you can add to your planning. Your thoughts on life support. Do you want assistance in breathing?
What type of palliative care would you like to receive? 80% of Canadians believe having a plan in place is a good idea, but just 1 in 5 actually have one. Family physician Chantel Perot has been initiating this discussion with her patients for years.
The idea of advanced care planning, I think most people think that it automatically, well, that's just too depressing, I don't want to think about it. We have a death-defying culture, and I think we need to have a death-embracing culture where we see death as a very significant part of life and not.
I have things to say on that.
If you want to sit down with your family or loved ones and are interested in getting something in writing, there's multiple resources and templates online, be it an advanced care plan or a power of attorney personal care plan. Just go to our website, citynews.ca. I'm City News reporter Adrian for 680 News.
Meanwhile, Olympics organizers in Japan have released a strict list of requirements.
In just 86 days, the Olympics are scheduled to begin in Tokyo, but a new survey by Kyoto News indicates organizers are still struggling to win public support. Over 70% of Japanese citizens want the games to be canceled or delayed because of the pandemic. Only a quarter of Japanese saying they want the Olympics to go forward right now. The poll coming out after new, tougher rules were just put into place in Japan to halt the rise of COVID. Alex Stone, EBC News.
Traffic and weather next.
I have trigeminal neuralgia, also known as suicide disease, and I know that I engage in risk-taking behavior, and I know that I will sometimes not give a fuck about pissing people off, because what are you gonna do, punch me? Stab me in the face? Really? Hit me with a brick or something? Really? 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 You're gonna hurt me so bad I'll die? Really? Dude, let's do this. I want to see this go down. I engage in risk-taking behavior because I have an exceptionally painful pain condition. It is known as suicide disease because they did a study a long time ago, and they found that 1 out of 2 people in this study killed themselves within 2 years of being diagnosed. That's how bad the pain is. It affects. I'm looking at that. It affects the, there's a nerve that basically comes like this, I guess, trigeminal. I'm not a neurologist, but I sort of have to figure it out because of it.
Gardner, what's film?
That and the fact that the painkillers we take can be quite strong, or you're in pain, you're taking pills, whatever to kill, and the pain doesn't go down. You can find yourself in a situation quite quickly out of control where you've taken too much, or you're operating a vehicle and you shouldn't be, or something like that. Yeah, and then combine that with sickle cell, where my blood might just stop pumping and I'll fall down. That's, in my case, that's how it fucking manifests. I basically fall down. I don't slam into the ground, but I can't stand up anymore, so I sit down really quickly. Oh, and my grandfathers aren't the only ones that were in the army in my family. So I don't know how to describe all this. Some of my uncles were they don't tell me all the details. It's one of the things people don't talk much. Loose lips sink ships. So they were, I guess, reservists or whatever. I don't know what the fuck. I don't remember which military complex we were in those years. So maybe they were full regular force members, but they were taught forestry and shit. And then here in the city, my uncle and my dad didn't sign up, but they were the first two. They were the first generation in a long time in that side of the family that didn't. And then we're related to cops too. My aunt gets pulled over, and the cop pulling her over, they're looking at each other like they know each other, like they look the same, and they got the same last name. But that don't get me no special treatment, eh? My brother's mother's a black Toronto police officer. That doesn't get me any special treatment. If anything, they look at us a little more harshly. You're gonna make your mother look bad, so we're gonna fucking come down on your ass.
Here's Denise Andriachi. Okay, well, we will wrap up April cool and pretty unsettled. For the second day in a row, Windsor's the...
It's 19 hours and 23 minutes. Well, I'm gonna finish this fucking split because that fucking thing ain't started yet.
Wanna keep a gun score, cause in these streets it's a blood sport. Not to mention links from the gun store. You shouldn't have brought him here.
So when I criticize that they're doing things the wrong way, even if I'm wrong, the influences that taught me how things should be done, they They would not be happy with you right now. Just half-assing things, doing the bare minimum. I'll take the mask off because no one's looking. I'll touch it and no one will know. You know I don't use the hand sanitizer? Not why I don't, but you know my compensation for not using the hand sanitizer? There's lots of shit I don't touch. I won't use your bottle of hand sanitizer because the alcohol won't kill, for example, hepatitis C. No, it won't. Chlorine bleach won't kill it. I've got openings all over my hand. So you put the hand sanitizer on, the alcohol, whatever, soaks right into your skin. Is that the problem I have? No. My problem is all these open wounds, which is why I don't touch things. Sorry, that's
Animal plush toys from the 90s that's as priceless as it is adorable. Snuggle up, you big softie. We've got you covered. Switch and save up to 35% on home insurance when you bundle with auto. Get it quoted.
No, I don't like how they target people. I don't like how they target people.
Gunshot liquor.
So my grandfather that served in Korea, 1998 or 2000 or so, I forget what year was this. Let's say it was, I think 2001, 2000 or 2001. We're in his shop, whatever. Fucking, we're watching City Pulse News or CP24. This was brand new. 680 News, CP24. If he's in the truck, it's on 680 News. Working or something, 680 News is on. If he's sitting down, he's watching CP24. I swear to God, you wonder where I get this from. We're watching the seal hunt, the commercial seal hunt, where they club them. First Nations hunters don't do that. They hunt with rifles. First of all, they can only, they're not beating them to death. It's one clean shot, but preferably one clean shot so you don't fucking destroy the pelt. And because they're using firearms, one of the rules they have is there's only one person there's a mile radius around each person that you don't enter. So there's only one. It's not hundreds of guys rushing in with bats or guns. No, it's one person, and then there's a mile around, and they don't just go pop, 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 pop like a machine gun to kill them all. They're trying to take clean shots. But we're watching the commercial hunt, all the controversy about that on the news before the European Union banned the imports, before the mad cow trade row between the UK and Britain and all this shit. He says, you know, I could kill a man in cold blood, but I don't think I could club one of those baby seals to death. And that's the mentality I got too.
In the meantime, interesting story here regarding Beyond Meat. Of course, now a very famous company for its well known for its product of plant-based burgers and faux ground beef. And get this, it's now reportedly set to expand into chicken. Beyond Meat.
We'll lynch you. I swear, we'll run you out of town on a rail and everything. No, you don't fuck with the chicken.
It would, if true, mark a major and significant move for the company.
Because we're not getting a news update, the press conference anytime soon. Damn. For some of you wondering, he drove a black Dodge long bed regular cab 150. It was 1990, and it had the 318, the 5.2. Our sound just cut out again. But it always threw me off because of the license. I think it was in, oh fuck, I can't remember now. The 4 digits on his license plate were the year, but not the same year. It was one. I can't remember. It was like 1991 or 1992 or something. It was 1 digit off from the actual year. All right, I'm making this. I'm gonna finish this split.
Beating like I'm Trinidad when my boy smelled with coca. Your homie got hit, he was riding like the chauffeur. Planet of the Apes, I was blood clot coca. Pop pop, come with a strap, swing off the shoulder. In the coffin, shutting the letters, giving you closure. You ever get close, something coming out the holster. People ride the trend, they're gonna see you on a poster. We post up, but you never talking when we approach. Get the black go online, and now you're doing the most. Kill him in my yard, nigga, like I could host. Didn't notice they pull guns when you thought you could roast. Just a dose. Know you love niggas need some milligrams. Sitting with a milli, he be posting it on Instagram. Dust says, love me selling quarters out the kilogram. Chrome polish so good, swear I used to pillow pack, baby. Fried chicken, oxtail gravy. Shaking up the ground like an earthquake in Haiti. Top Toronto rappers like how you niggas don't see me. You can't make yourself trying to play me. Said I wasn't sick, but I'm sick though. I give you gangster rap, hard calypso. We never stop eating like it's a pit bull. And young boy can't stop squeezing, they got it. We with the hammers. Shorty in the kitchen, chicken like Louisiana. Killer like Diana. I go to sleep with a rifle in my pajamas. I was childish, but my Gambino no Atlanta. Gunshot for your head top. For grind, nigga. TG. Man, them niggas that we beefing is so lame. I run with them clips, my gun black and I spit like Kobe. 4 white boys who let it sing like Coldplay. I sat back and got a flashback on my old ways. Like blocker. 30 shots up in the fucking chopper. He got shot but shot back and couldn't see the doctor. Nigga bled out, cause nigga how it's better. Remembering the day my brother got it, couldn't get him. So I went and got a Mac 11, me just a weather. And 2 bad light-skinned bitches for the sweater. My city getting crazy, and nigga. Moms losing their babies, I know the pain to have to carry my nigga. To a place to yet to bury my nigga. Fuck, but since then, I got a couple heads to bury the trigger. That's what I keep a gun for. Cause in these streets, it's a blood sport. Not to mention links from the gun store. You shouldn't have riding here. They're catching bodies here. As soon as niggas slap that metal on that bottom here. And I'll keep beating metal to the plastic on the milk. Shoot shots to the pin break. Niggas been fake.
Our government will also lead the way by introducing the COVID-19 Putting Workers First Act. Through this bill, we are the only province in Canada to introduce paid sick days specific to COVID-19. If passed, all workers will soon have access to 3 paid sick days. This is more than the 1 day available to workers in Prince Edward Island and the 2 days available to workers in Quebec.
Oh, so that's what you're
thinking.
It's not for this. No, it's
and
not.
This will save lives.
No, wow.
Across the nation, nobody else offers an end-to-end.
You could argue while you're sitting down in front of the TV getting drunk. You could argue that.
Income protection.
I'm saving lives right now. Crack another one as long as you stay sitting in front of that TV. You're telling me that's technically true, is it not?
Stay healthy. Our action today means that if a warehouse worker is told to self-isolate, she can do so without losing her paycheck. And if a grocery store clerk needs to take time off to get vaccinated, they can get paid while doing so. We've stressed from the beginning that anyone who's sick
may have said
should
S/HE. Like, I don't know. I'm just.
But we know that for some people, it was hard to heed that advice because they couldn't afford to take time off work. If a scratchy throat or a simple sneeze meant they could lose a day's pay.
Dude, I've got like sewage coming out of my left eye this morning. I didn't mention that yet.
This should never happen, and it ends now. We've also been clear since the start that we would not burden businesses during this very challenging time. We want to ensure businesses survive this pandemic and that workers have jobs to come back to. That is why, as part of our Ontario COVID-19 Worker Income Protection Benefit, employers will be reimbursed for what they pay out up to $200 a day for 3 days.
Did you see how they do that?
Workers,
like
building schools, hospitals, and homes.
Like what we're concerned about is the dollar amount instead of how many days.
Grocery store, we've got your back.
If you're self-isolating, is it not 14 days?
These new benefits if you need to. To learn more, visit ontario.ca/COVID worker benefit or call 1-888-999-2248.
Because it's 1992.
999-2248. All of us have a part to play in turning the corner.
I'm sorry, I just made fun of how far advanced we are in technology.
That simply means staying home when you need to. And to our small businesses and all employers, these proposals will make your workplaces safer and ensure you can continue to operate. As new variants flood into our country, nobody can let their guard down. Thank you, and I'll now turn things over to my colleague, Minister Bethan Falvey.
Well, thank you, Monty, for those remarks. And good afternoon, everyone. Pleased to be here this afternoon. And as Monty said,
I got it.
Our government's priority since the
ventilated approved pit latrine, the VIP latrine with a human piss battery to run the fan.
Ontario is very proud of those working
and the bug
throughout this unprecedented time to keep essential parts of our economy and local communities open through the pandemic. They sacrifice so much at personal risk, often in difficult conditions. We certainly acknowledge that, like Ontario, the federal government has made beating COVID-19 their top priority. Our government values our close partnership with the federal government as we work together to protect and support the people of Ontario. And I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Minister Freeman on the release of her first budget as Finance Minister last week. A truly historic budget. But we were disappointed. 2021 federal budget provided no additional funding or direction to improve the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit to protect our essential workers when they are ill or worried that they have COVID-19.
We're going to have to build up the army to make sure these people don't come looking to collect their money.
Columbia has expressed similar concerns about the shortcomings.
And so we'll be able to order people to work
to enhance
for like
the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit in their 2021 budget. That is why Ontario is stepping up to fill the gaps. As Minister McNaughton announced, this new provincial funding would allow eligible individuals to receive a total of $1,000 per week through the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit Program if missing work because of COVID-19. Our government looks forward to securing Ottawa's commitment to administer the program with the top.
You just have to know, if you incentivize getting sick,
we believe that
the money has to come from somewhere. You can do that, but the money has to come from somewhere. You shouldn't do that.
More effective for those people who need this program the most. Premier Ford made a promise at the start of the pandemic that our government would do whatever it takes to protect the people of this province. That's a promise that our government continues to follow through on. Le Premier ministre Ford a promis au début de la pandémie que notre gouvernement ferait tout ce qu'il faut pour protéger la population de la province. C'est une promesse que notre gouvernement continue de tenir. These targeted measures announced today build on the unprecedented support our government has provided to protect people's health as we face the third wave of the pandemic. Our top priority is getting vaccines in arms. Full stop. As we receive more vaccines from the federal government, we continue to rapidly expand our capacity to administer vaccines, focusing on the most vulnerable population. Nothing will prevent us from getting the job done. Nobody will be left behind.
Books in the way.
It has not been, and it won't be a straight line to the finish line.
You can't see it, but I'm looking at my tomato plants and grape plants and my flag.
And supporting the people of Ontario.
Stare off that way.
And with the measures announced today, we look forward to working with our federal partners to ensure workers receive the care they need when and where they need it. Thank you, and I'll turn the podium back to Minister McNaughton.
Okay, we're going to go to the phone lines.
So I saw a street sweeper last night, but I gotta go. I'm gonna have to go. I was gonna go check because the rain will knock everything loose.
First question from Laura Deretikov at CPC. Please go ahead.
It's like hosing the dirt off your driveway kind of thing.
Release, so I'm just trying to go through this here. Is there something that the WSIB is going to be involved here? Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I'm really proud of what we're doing today to ensure that we have all workers' backs across the province. We're introducing a benefit to ensure workers are covered for 3 days. And I want to highlight just how flexible and how important this benefit is. This will help those workers who have to stay home and self-isolate if they are sick.
He's got a solar-powered laser beam guitar, backseat of a rented car.
If you're a mom or dad out there who has a son or daughter who has symptoms and isn't feeling well, you can stay home as well and use one of these 3 days. Furthermore, we're really excited.
I'm giving nobody no prizes, but whoever comments
to work together to
correctly, all those things I just
for $1,000 per week for 4 weeks. This truly is the most generous policy and program in the country. And we want to ensure that small businesses also have the opportunity to get through COVID-19 to ensure that they have a fighting chance to survive. We know that many small businesses and communities across the province have been hard hit. That's why we're going to reimburse those small businesses and all employers $200 a day for 3 days. And that program will be run and operated through the WSIB.
A follow-up. We've been hearing these calls for a provincial sick day program for months already from a number of different sources. Why did it take so long, and why this decision for 3 days when other professionals were saying that really, given that this is COVID-19 and the isolation period that's required, why 3 days and not more?
Well, look, we're leading Canada when it comes to protecting workers. We're bringing in protections for 3 paid sick days. The federal program runs for 4 weeks. We're there for workers through this entire pandemic. Let me go back to the very beginning, back last March, when we took action to bring in job protected leave. We were the first province in the entire country to bring in job protected leave for any worker who needs to stay home. If they're in self-isolation, if they're in quarantine, if you're a mom or a dad who has to stay home to look after a son or daughter because of the disruption in the education system, you can't be fired for that. If you need to, just look after loved ones, your job is protected. Furthermore, our job protected leave also ensure that people that get vaccinated can't be fired for that either. Then in the summer last year, we partnered with the Prime Minister to deliver $1.1 billion worth of paid sick days for workers here in Ontario and across Canada. Since that time, we knew there were issues with that federal program. That's why I work closely with Minister Qualtrough.
So that's valid. ONTAIRO. It's valid.
Recovery Sickness Benefit Program. And we work with them to ensure that they expanded that program from 2 weeks to 4 weeks of paid sick days off to ensure that checks were delivered in workers' bank accounts between 3 and 5 days. And that's where we're at today. And to also ensure that workers could apply more than once to that federal program. So we were, working with them all the way along. And as the Minister of Finance alluded to, we were disappointed with the federal budget. We thought that they were going to come through, but clearly they didn't. We're stepping up today with a generous paid sick day program for workers in Ontario to ensure that we get through COVID-19 and workers stay home when they're sick.
Next question.
Next question from Judge Allen at Queen's Press Briefing. Please go ahead.
Hi there, Minister. I was wondering, why is this temporary? Why does it expire in September? Will workers not still potentially need to stay home once the pandemic is over?
Look, I'm really excited about this program. This is going to get us through COVID-19.
I knew there was a detail I was waiting for.
Virus, as quickly as possible. I want to mention that this is retroactive. The 3 days that we're introducing very soon will be retroactive until April the 19th and will continue until September the 25th, which aligns with the federal government's sickness recovery benefit. But the goal of this, we made it very flexible, very generous, very open. The goal is to get Ontario and our families through COVID-19.
AIRIO. Yeah, that's valid too.
Did you consult with the science table specifically about this plan, and did they sign off on it?
We certainly had lots of advice from the medical community. This is something that we've heard loud and clear. Again, we were really disappointed in that federal budget. We know in their federal program, for example, according to the budget, there's about $700 million left in that bank account. They should have moved and moved in their budget to improve that program. But we're here for the workers in Ontario. We're going to get through this, and we want every worker out there, if they're unwell, feeling unwell, caring for a loved one, stay home and save lives.
Going to the next question.
Next question from Laura Stone at the Globe and Mail. Please go ahead.
Hi, Laura.
Hi, Minister. I guess I'm just wondering how you can kind of stand there and pat yourself on the back for this after a year of calls to be doing something about this. And I recognize that you keep talking about the federal program, but really, Ontario has faced calls from all sorts of people in the medical community, in the business world, in public health, mayors, to move on this sooner. So what changed? Was it just the incredible public pressure that your government has been feeling for the past few weeks?
Again, Laura, I mean, we moved decisively when COVID-19 hit the province. We brought in job-protected leave, so no one had to choose between their job and their health. And we advocated to the federal government to improve this program. I mean, take, for example, what BC's NDP Premier has said in the last week. They wanted a stronger response and better improvements to the federal program as well. It is a very simple program that they'd administer that would get checks into workers' bank accounts really quickly. In fact, 80% of those checks now are directly deposited into workers' bank accounts between 3 and 5 days. But we expected that there would have been something in that federal budget on April the 19th, and there wasn't. So I can assure you, we have worked day and night to ensure that workers are protected here in Ontario. We're leading Canada.
He's given 3 or 4 different pronunciations of Ontario. Right? That's he's letting us know he's one of us. And it's not his fault.
Every worker that needs them. And I referenced, Laura, I mean, Prince Edward Island has 1 paid sick day. Quebec has 2. No other province. Ontario is the first to move to ensure that these supports are in place for workers.
ONTARAO. That would, Jesus, bro, that's 4 or 5 examples.
And can you clarify, is there any application process for these 3 days, or will people just get access to this money right away without having to fill out a form or delay? And can you also clarify the part about topping up the federal government program? That actually hasn't been agreed to yet, right? You're still pushing for that, but Ottawa hasn't said whether they'll allow it, so it's contingent on the federal government okaying this.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of questions there. I'll let Minister Beth McFalvey respond regarding the federal program. And sorry, what was the first question?
Sorry, Minister. It was about whether there's a delay in actually getting the money, because that was one of the major concerns about the federal program. So can people just know that they're taking time off and will be getting paid for that time?
Absolutely. I mean, I eliminated the need for sick notes in Ontario last year. There are no sick notes required. This is a very flexible and generous 3 days that workers can take off with any issues related to COVID-19. If they're, in self-isolation and quarantine, if you have to stay home with a son or a daughter or another dependent, you're going to be paid for those days that you take off, up to 3 days. There's no forms, there's no applications. The employer will pay the worker, and the employer will be reimbursed through the province. And I'll let Minister Beth McFalvey talk about the federal negotiations.
Yeah, thank you, Laura, for that question. The 20 paid sick days from the federal government, as you know, Premier Ford and the other premiers worked together with the federal government to come up with a national program. COVID is right across the country, so having a national program made a lot of sense, and putting sufficient dollars in place. And the federal government responded when Monty McNaughton, our minister, and Minister Qualtrough worked together to fix to enhance the program, to go from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, to double it. So 20 paid sick days, to go to a faster and easier format to get money. As Monty said, 3 to 5 business days, 80% done digitally. These are the types of things that we work together on. But of course, we wanted more. We've been advocating for more, and you saw BC as well advocate for more. And so, they filed their budget as we did, and protecting people's health. And the federal government on April 19th filed theirs, and there was no enhancement to the program. So we're going to continue to have that discussion with the federal government on many levels. The point is that their program exists, it's in place. It has the infrastructure. It is the quickest way to deliver those 20 paid sick days, and to double it. Ontario's offered to double that program. So that even means more for the hardworking families of Ontario. And, I'm an optimist and glass half full sort of person. So I am confident that...
I think that was ONTAR''O.
Do the right thing.
Okay, next question. And a reminder to hit *1 if you have a question.
Next question from Steve Paikin at TVO. Please go ahead.
Question for the finance minister. Can he tell us how much he is budgeting for this provision?
Well, thanks, Steve, for that question. We haven't put out a number. Of course, we don't know what the take-up's going to be, but as you know, and when I tabled our budget on March 24th, I said protecting people's health was our #1 priority, that we would do whatever it takes to protect the people of Ontario. So again, we're stepping up in that regard. I've mentioned our disappointment that the federal program wasn't enhanced, but we've gone ahead. It's much like on the healthcare, the Canada Health Transfer. We've gone ahead and made historic investments in our healthcare system, our hospitals, our long-term care, mental health and addiction, as well as the staffing for that. And I'll remind everyone that as part of the budget, I tabled significant amounts of money for our COVID response, in addition to our base funding, almost $7 billion plus contingencies and reserves to be able to fund it. And finally, Steve, I'll be out. I'm out every quarter. We'll update the numbers as they come in. I have to do the first quarter by August 15th, so I'll be out in front of you again, and I'll be reporting out on the specific dollars. And this is a program that, on one hand, you hope no one gets COVID, so there isn't much take-up. But on the other hand, we want to incent people to get vaccinated, to get tested, to wait for their test results at home if they've got concerns, as the minister has said, about how they're feeling, to incent them to isolate. And so this is the first mandatory COVID program in all of Canada. Thank you.
Can I get a follow-up here?
You do, sir.
Terrific. One of the things one hears on the QT is that there are concerns about bringing in a program like this because one never knows if members of the public will abuse it. I wonder how concerned you are about that.
I'm not. I trust workers and families right across this province. This is a measure that we're bringing in until COVID-19 is defeated. We've aligned it with the federal program to end on September 25th. But if we need to extend it,
they said the same thing about income tax for World War I.
But again, to
we win the war, and we'll get rid of the tax. That's what they
did. To every step of the way till we defeat COVID-19 once and for all.
Next question.
Next question from Margaret Bernstein at the Toronto Star. Please go ahead.
Thanks. This is for the treasurer. I'm just wondering, I'm doing the calculations and talking to folks. It seems like this is going to cost more than $2 billion. Why wasn't this in the budget? You had a budget on just a little more than a month ago. Wouldn't it have been prudent to put something like this in the provincial budget instead of waiting and hoping that Chrystia Freeland would have something in her budget?
Well, there's a lot of prudence built into that budget, as you know, Rob, and as well. At that time, we were working with the federal government. The minister has been working with his counterpart, and I know the premier and other premiers across the country to see if we could make enhancements to that program. There's, as the minister said, significant dollars available in that program, and the awareness of that program. And we call on all our counterparts and across the province to promote that program. 20 paid sick days is a pretty good program. It's in place, and so rather than create a new one from scratch for that program, we've offered to double up the payments, the $500 a week, to make it $1,000 a week. And we think that's the right thing to do. So it's something that we've been very focused on in those conversations. And as I said before, I'm an optimist, and we'll see where those conversations go.
And following up, is there regret around the cabinet table that in October 2018, you got rid of 2 paid sick days that were mandated. That was Ontario law for about a year. And then when the Tories won the June 2018 election, they canceled that. Is there kind of a little bit of remorse that you removed that measure, because it might have alleviated the situation? We're now in the 411th day of the pandemic in Ontario.
Look, we're going to continue to stand with workers and their families in every community across Ontario. We're going to get through COVID-19 together. This is going to be a big help for workers out there. But furthermore, we've seen, especially in the last couple of weeks, pieces of legislation coming forward at Queen's Park for 10 days of paid sick days, 14 days of paid sick days. But those pieces of legislation squarely put the burden on the backs of small businesses. We have to give small businesses a fighting chance to survive COVID-19, to grow and prosper when we come through this. And more importantly, we need workers to have jobs to go back to when we get through this wave. So I'm proud of what we're doing today. We're there for workers across the province, and we're also helping small businesses grow and prosper and get through COVID-19.
I'd like to thank both the ministers. That was the last question. Thank you very much.
I just remember the nerve pinch on the shoulder.
We are going to have the leader of the NDP, Andrew Horwath, up next, and then the leader of the Green Party up after her. Thank you.
Happening now, the latest from Queen's Park, the Ford government putting forward new legislation for paid sick days after months of immense pressure to create such a program. They've come up with the Ontario COVID-19 Worker Income Protection Benefit, which they say is meant to fill the gaps. It would double weekly payments to $1,000 per week. And they've also introduced 3 paid sick days. This program would run until September 25th and does come with some conditions. We're trying to get some straight answers for you, and we'll have those at the top of the hour. This is 680 News.
From the communist regime. But if you've ever been around her, you learn what it's all about in a hurry, and about the Vietnam War.
Well, yeah, I mean, that picture, I think that won a Pulitzer Prize, didn't it?
Yes, it did. It's coming up on the 50th anniversary of that shot, actually. Another couple of years.
Slam a cardboard door.
That's one of the main famous, iconic photos from the Vietnam War. The other is where the police captain shot the guy, the Viet Cong guy in
yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so technically, you know, a lot of people changed their minds after they saw that picture of her. So you might say now, today, it was a Canadian that helped end the war.
Which one?
Fair enough. All right. Because at the time, you know, Canadian input on that war wasn't always graciously accepted. As a matter of fact, it was Lester Pearson, our prime minister at the time, went down to see Johnson in the States, President LBJ, and started, I guess he had given a speech, an indictment of the war. And the next day at the White House, Johnson just picked him up by the lapels and basically said, "You pissed on my rug." That's what he said. "You pissed on my rug." He took him by the lapels, lifted him right off his feet, as the story goes. So there you have it. That was, you know, 2 different countries with disparate views on what was the situation in Southeast Asia. You know, the situation in Southeast Asia today is that the Vietnamese, I mean, check on some of your products or your fabrics, they're made in Vietnam. Makes you wonder,
Timberlands.
30, 40 years, 50 years after the fact, you know, the futility of these kinds of endeavors. But
product of Vietnam.
I'm asking if it was a right or wrong thing to do to defy, well, duty, as it was considered at the time, patriotic duty, like country right or wrong, and a lot of people still with us today because they actually did follow their conscience. It's just one of those things where, you know, over the span of time, you can see how history is reshaped.
Timberlands come from Vietnam. Dickies come from Cambodia.
It's a big flag, a red one, and it's going to be waved by, amongst others, Peter Menzies, the past vice chair of the CRTC, warning us about this Bill C-10 that the Liberals are trying to push through, and the Heritage Commissioner there, or not the Commissioner, I guess the Minister, Stephen Guilbeault, is a big backer of this. But there are some real ominous notes to it all. We'll explain it into hour 2. Swifty and Potsy at the bottom of the coming hour as well here on the Oakley Show. Global News Radio, 640 Toronto.
When your bank account does more, your money does more. So you can live more.
Oryx at 19,354. We're in record high territory here on the Bay Street benchmark. Shopify, the big winner today. The stock up. Oh, just over 10% here. And
I don't know. Did I learn anything? I'm not sure. But I do know everybody's so they're being idiots. They keep trying to lurch at people stepping closer and getting around so they're upwind, mask off, tilting their head up, screaming. And if you move away from them, they're offended.
And when it comes to car insurance,
Is that big change? Shotgun test, half his body. I'm a top gamer. You know.
In downtown Toronto, a little more sun than clouds, 5 degrees. The news watch
Gunshot
never stops.
50 drum beating like so 50. I'm chilling that when my twin smoke was close. Like your homie got hit, he was riding like a chauffeur. Planet of the apes, I was blood clot closer. Pork pop come with a strap, swing up the shoulder. In the coffin, shutting the letters, giving you closure. You ever get closer, it's coming out the holster. People ride the train, they're gonna see you on a poster. We poster, but you never tell.
Government introduces paid COVID-19 leave.
And this will save lives.
The province will reimburse employers for up to 3 paid sick days for every worker.
time, eastbound 401 at less.
Gunshot liquor, 50 drum beating like so 50. I'm Trinidad when my twin smoke was close. Like your homie got hit, he was riding like a chauffeur. Planet of the apes, I was blood clot closer. Pork pop come with a strap, swing off the shoulder. In the coffin, shutting the letters, giving you closure. You ever get closer, it's coming out the holster. People ride the train, they're gonna see you on a poster. We poster, but you never talking when we approach. Get the blind, go online, and now you're doing the most. Don't kill him in my yard, nigga, like I could host. Didn't notice guns when you thought you could roast. There's a dose. Know your little niggas need some milligrams. Sitting with a milli, he be posting it on Instagram. Them dust has love me selling quarters out the kilogram. Chrome polish so good, swear I used to Brillo pack, baby. Fried chicken, oxtail gravy. Shaking up the ground like an earthquake in Haiti. Stop running around just like how you niggas don't save me. You can't. Metro still trying to play me. They said I wasn't sick, but I'm sick. I give you gangster rap, my calypso. We never stop beating like it's a pit bull. And young boy can't stop squeezing. He got we with the hammers. Shorty in the kitchen, chicken like Louisiana. Killer like Diana. I go to sleep with a rifle in my pajamas. I was childish, but my Gambino no Atlanta. Gunshot for your head top. For the ground, nigga. Slam them niggas that we beefing is so lame. My homies them clips, my guns black and it spit like Obey. 4 white boys who let it sing like Coldplay. I sat back and got a flashback on my old ways like Blocker. 30 shots up in the fucking chopper. He got shot, was shot back and couldn't see the doctor. Nigga bled out, cause nigga how it's better. Remembering the day my brother got it, couldn't get him. So I went and got a Mac 11, me just a weather. And 2 bad light-skinned bitches with a sweater. My city getting crazy, a nigga. Moms losing their babies, I know the pain to have to carry my nigga to a place to get to bury my nigga. But since then, we got a couple heads to bury the trigger. Like what I keep a gun for, cause in these streets it's a blood sport. Not to mention links from the gun store. You sitting around in here, the kitchen bodies here. As soon as niggas slap the metal on that bottom here.
and long-term care sector. The body listing says long-term care homes were poorly prepared for the pandemic, and as a result, more than 3,700 residents died. She also said that directives to the sector from the province and the chief medical officer last were inadequate, and their actions inadvertently complicated things. The long-term care minister, Mary Lee Fullerton, ducked repeated questions about whether she shares any responsibility for Ontario's long-term care homes being decimated by the virus. She continued to point the finger at previous governments for the tragedy.
I take responsibility for the well-being of residents in long-term care and for accountability over fixing the disaster of the last 15 years. That's what I'm accountable for. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Opposition leader Andrea Horvath says it was this minister and this government that cut funding for things like inspections in long-term care homes before the pandemic began. She says Fullerton trying to deflect the responsibility to others is horrifying.
The problems are not fixed in long-term care still.
$1,000 a week for 4 weeks.
Welcome to Big Ma Matters, a podcast about big Ma people, politics.
You're not impressing nobody for now. Man, your connection's unstable. We know. We don't care. Look it up, Tomo.
I got a lifetime fever. I don't gotta spit. I'm still eating. I got a lifetime fever. I don't gotta spit. I'm still eating. I got a lifetime fever. I don't gotta spit. I'm still eating. 38 revolver flow. 38 revolver flow. 38 revolver flow is hard to trace. Yo, whip it real hard. In the kitchen, whipping up that freaking till it real hard. Bitch, I hustle real hard. Bitch, you hustle real smart. Bitch, you hustle once a week. Bitch, I'm flipping Rick Ross. Whip it real hard. In the kitchen, whipping up that freaking till it real hard. Bitch, I hustle real hard. Bitch, you hustle real smart. Bitch, you hustle once a week. Bitch, I'm flipping Rick Ross every day. Grinding hard, grinding big, you grinding small. 38 revolver blows. I'm watching people can kill them all. I'll be down to kill a dog. Burn him with my fucking blow. Once he dead, go find his bitch. I'm flirting with this fucking hoe. Working with this fucking hoe. I'll be on my fucking shit. Blow like a revolver. Take 6 shots, you dead, ain't need a clip. I got a lifetime fever. I don't gotta spit. I'm still eating. I got a lifetime fever. I don't gotta spit. I'm still eating. I got a lifetime fever. I don't gotta spit. I'm still eating. 38. Quiet. Real G's don't talk much. Never lie, you won't hesitate to pop one. Got hollows by the bag, try to stop one. Fuck around and catch a hot one from a shotgun. I'm a hot one. What your bitch say? Flow hard, stay sharper than a switchblade. You's a bitch made. Man, I'll make bitches. Triple R, I ain't fucking with no fake bitches. Real recognize real what's good. Get money and I'll bring it back to the hood. Ask me how I'm doing, probably tell you real good. But I ain't stopping till I'm fucking gripping Ben's wood. And I ain't stopping till I'm fucking bitches in my penthouse. One Lambo, one Rari, chillin'.
Getting through on the left side, and this is due to a collision. Delays very heavy on the East 401. The 680 traffic watch continues.
This is 680 News. The city teaming up with an increasingly popular online group that's been helping spread the word about vaccines and where to get them. 680's Mark Douglas joins us live with that. Mark.
James, City Hall leadership is heaping praise on Vaccine Hunters Canada, and the mayor is not even accepting the premise of the question that this group of unpaid volunteers is doing better than the Ontario government when it comes to informing and helping the people. Toronto does use the province's vaccination booking system. Vaccine Hunters is the darling of social media with frequent and simple updates and announcements about where, when, how, and who can get vaccines. The city and Vaccine Hunters have now
Ticket feels a lot like that moment between.
And chill locked up, better free the homie bitches from the sand, cause I got that desert eagle on me.
Sicker than SARS, something like Ebola.
This group of volunteers have come together to commit their expertise and their time and effort to a cause as good as this. Quite frankly, warms my heart. Reporting live.
You should have said as great as this.
The hospital strain remains steady, but new cases of COVID-19 in Ontario appear to be leveling off, and our testing positivity rate is down slightly. Here's the city's Irene Presley. There is still optimism in the numbers. 3,280 cases with a positivity rate of 7.2%. But the hotspots are still hot. London's weekly positivity rate is 22.2%, which is close to a record reached last week. Seattle's top wrestlers up in Lawrence Road have both cases real hard. In the kitchen, whipping up that freaking real hard. Bitch, I hustle real hard. Bitch, you hustle real smart. Bitch, you hustle once a week. Bitch, I'm flipping real hard. 2,281 people are hospitalized in Ontario with COVID-19 and daily decline. However, bitch, you hustle real smart. Bitch, you hustle once a week. Bitch, I'm flipping Rick wild every day. Grinding hard, grinding big, you grinding small. 38 with all of them. Watch me working till I'm off. I'll be down to kill it now. Working with my fucking blow. What she think about this bitch, I'm flipping with this fucking hoe. Working with this fucking hoe. I'll be on my fucking shit. Look like a reload. Take the shot, you they need it. Clip. Looking across Ontario and the GTA, contact your local Ultimate Clinic or visit ultimatedental.com to find a dental professional near you. Ultimate Dental, care beyond your smile.
News has presented and profits. The price will be moving sharply at midnight and we're doing the following rising from cents to 1.9 cents.
Quiet, real G's don't talk much. Never lie, you won't hesitate to pop one. Got hollows
cases. Ford didn't do what experts told them to do to keep kids safe. Now the virus is out of control and we're facing school closures again. Health measures don't work. It's time to make vaccines available to all educators and frontline workers. Schools won't be safe until transmission is under control. A message from the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario.
Especially Honda. Our family wants your family to drive a great deal on your Honda Checkered Fiberman. Right now, get 0.99% lease or finance on any term on all remaining 2020 Accords. Or get 35 rates.
If half measures don't work,
in the kitchen whipping
you're mixing up your votes with vaccines. How come the vaccines are half?
Bitch, you hustle real smart. Bitch, you hustle once a week. Bitch, I'm flipping Rick wild. Real hard in the kitchen, whipping up that brick until it's real hot. Bitch, I hustle real hard. Bitch, you hustle real smart. Bitch, you hustle once a week. Bitch, I'm flipping Rick wild every day. Grinding hard, grinding big, you grinding small. 38 revolver blow. Come watch me working till I'm off. I'll be down to kill it out. Working with my fucking blow. Once he dead, go find this bitch. I'm flipping with this fucking hoe. Working with this fucking hoe. I'll be on my fucking shit. Look like a revolver. Take 6 shots, you dead, ain't need a clip. I got a lifetime. I don't gotta spit. I got a lifetime. I don't gotta spit. I'm still I got a lifetime. I don't gotta spit. I'm still quiet. Real G's don't talk much. Never lie, you won't hesitate to pop one. Got hollows by the bag, try to stop one. Fuck around and catch a hot one from a shotgun. I'm a hot one. What you bitch say? Flow hard, stay sharper than a switchblade. You's a bitch made, and I make bitches I ain't fucking with no fake bitches. Real recognize real what's good. Get money and I bring it back to the hood. Ask me how I'm doing, probably tell you real good. But
that's a copyright issue. It has nothing to do with this at all. It may very well be a legitimate issue, but it should be dealt with through copyright. All through this process, we've seen a legislative process that indicates the people behind it don't really understand the internet. The internet is speech. That's really what it is. And sometimes it's messy and it's ugly, just like democracy is, right? We don't always like what people say. We get offended by it. I'm sure you've offended people. I'm sure I have. And I'm sure we both get offended all the time by things other people say. But that's what tolerance is, right? I mean, that's what debate is. If you think somebody's wrong, prove them wrong with the argument. Democracy is not about, everybody agreeing. It's about finding some sort of social consensus. Not to necessarily agree.
Democracy is the piss poor cousin of consensus.
Having a government regulator, and the one he's got coming up is sort of guardians of the public good that will decide what is and isn't acceptable, and to order social media platforms to take these comments down I find it chilling.
Yeah, it's almost Orwellian speak. Again, Peter Menzies with us, past vice chair of the CRTC, senior fellow with the Macdonald-Laurier Institute on this Bill C-10. And so just to clarify, as you made a point there, if you've got something that maybe is showing up on somebody's social media platform, maybe a song list, and I get it, there are copyright issues that might be involved, but we have copyright laws in effect. We also have hate laws that, and anti-libel laws and things like that. So what you're saying is we can deal with these things on a legal basis rather than having it dictated to us from above.
Absolutely, and that's where it should be. I mean, you're talking about a fundamental freedom here, freedom of expression. It's the foundation of democracy. With all due respect, journalism isn't the foundation of democracy. Journalism, the type you exercise and others do, and the type I used to exercise, depends on free speech more than anything else. If you don't have that, you don't have democracy, right? You've had journalists, Prop has had journalists, right? All kinds of creepy characters have had journalists that did their bidding. But this sort of thing undermines that. You have to be free. You can't be speaking with permission of the state.
I'm kind of curious, Peter Menzies, what's your take on what would have
grandfathers?
emboldened Stephen Guilbeault or the government to think that this is something that would pass muster? And it may, because Jagmeet Singh, he weighed in and said he could support it with this latest amendment.
Well, all the roads to hell are paved with good intentions, right? I mean, this started off as a venture to try to get the Netflixes of the world and that sort of stuff to contribute to designated Canadian content funding. I mean, they have already been producing a great deal of work in Canada and investing heavily in the Canadian artistic industry. I mean, it's grown outside the CRT system by 80% and within the CRT system because of it. But anyway, they wanted to bring it in. They thought this was unfair to cable companies, all that sort of stuff. So they decided to walk into this, how hard can it be? We're just going to regulate part of the internet. Well, it turns out it's pretty hard, because it's not a closed system like cable or even like broadcasting, where you're licensed to have a particular piece of spectrum that you broadcast on, right? Mm-hmm. It's eternal and it's infinite, right? And so they wade into this, and then you start saying, well, yeah, but if we do this, will they do that sort of stuff? And you come in with this huge sweeping piece of legislation that really it's so badly broken right now. The smart move is to pull it, retreat, refocus on what it is they want to do, and do it. Because they keep saying, look, this thing, free speech, that's not what we want to do. That's not what we want to do. And my response to that is, then stop doing it.
Well, that was the contentious clause, but my understanding is on several other fronts. I mean, the CRTC has been regulating broadcasting in this country for eons, and the broadcasters tend to favor C10. They want it beefed up to protect their own domains, what they feel are being eroded by, companies like Netflix and Google and all the rest who are, eating their lunch and then some. The music industry, likewise, there's a certain protectionism built into it that they.
Donahue right now eastbound on the 401 approaching Leslie and the collectors. We only have a single left.
In legacy media rather than mainstream media, which has kind of become pejorative in some sectors these days. But legacy media, it's a very challenging time for them. A system, and they always were able to live in this walled garden system that protected them. And in exchange, they agreed to behave in certain ways. As the internet has evolved, systems have grown outside of Canada's protected system. And in some ways, it's opened Canada to the world. The cultural wall that Canadian broadcasting was able to build around itself is gone. The solution to that is not to try to stuff the internet inside of it. Right? The solution to that might be just to let the people inside the wall be a little bit more free, right? Equally, stuffing the same amount of lead into everybody's saddles might be one way to go about it. The other way to go about it might be to take the lead out of people's saddles.
Right. It's been seen as a shakedown that was, for many broadcasters, necessary to do a big tech, and it was their come to Jesus moment kind of thing. And you're saying that was the wrong approach for the government to take?
I think so. I mean, the internet has been a wonderful development. It's democratic. Feeds like Twitter, people have celebrated when, things like the Arab Spring occurred and people were discarding oppressive governments in Egypt and that sort of stuff. And it's all a lot of fun until it starts to challenge your status quo, I guess. Like I said, for traditional media, newspapers have been devastated by the internet. It took all that classified advertising money they used to get and gave it away for free, right? But
so, Peter, finally, let me just ask.
The industry got decimated when the automobile got invented too. Change happens.
Finally, though, let me ask, what are the prospects of this actually passing into law? I mentioned the NDP would support it, so is it more or less a done deal, do you feel?
I think with the NDP support, it's a done deal. And the next wave of legislation on this, the one that will more accurately describe or more directly subscribe the takedowns of unacceptable comment, GOV has promised to introduce in the next week or two. So if you don't like this one, wait until you get a load of the next one.
Yeah, the poor man's Torquemada is on a crusade. I get your point. Hey, Peter Menzies, really good to talk and be enlightened from the perspective of somebody who sat in the chair of the vice of the CRTC. Thanks so much for your time this afternoon.
I appreciate it, John. Thanks very much.
You got it. Peter Menzies again, former editor-in-chief and publisher of the Calgary Herald, now a senior fellow with the Macdonald Laurier Institute. Oh, hell, let's talk booze. Yeah, let alone needing one. I guess we could just discuss the oldest whiskey on record going on the auction block in June in Boston. And the guy who's going to be involved in that is about to weigh in here on the Opie Show. 21 past. Back to the roads on a